Sergeant at Arms, advance the colors.
Color guard! Post colors! Post!
Sergeant at Arms, present the honor guard.
Honor guard! Forward! Ha! Guard! Halt! Ready! Pace! Present! Halt! Ready! Two! Outbound! Pace!
At this time, I'd like to ask Mary Matthew to sing our national anthem.
Yes, would you please join in with me today?
Guard! Present! Halt!
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, all the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ready! Touche!
Thank you, Mary.
return of our brothers, Gerard Crossan, Kevin O'Brien, and all POW-MIAs. Help us, Father. Inspire us to remove the obstacles. Give courage to those who know the truth to speak out. Grant wisdom to the negotiators and compassion to the jailers. Inspire the media to speak out so loudly as they have in the past. Protect those who seek in secret. Help them succeed. Show us the tools to do your will. Guard and bless those in captivity, their families, and those who work for their release. Let them come home. We ask these things as we ask all things in your name. Amen.
I'd like to welcome everyone to our POW-MIA ceremony. It's important that you're here to show your support for the families of POWs missing in action. Sergeant at Arms, seat the honor guard.
Gun and hands left. Ready, face. Forward, up. Facing.
POW-MIA Recognition Day is observed on the third Friday of September to recommit the full accountability to the families of more than 81,000 veterans captured or still missing from wars the United States has participated in. The numbers are staggering. 72,184 from World War II. 7,491 from the Korean War. 1,578 from the Vietnam War. 126 from the Cold War, 5 from the Gulf Wars, and 1 from El Dorado Canyon. The day was first observed in 1979 after 2,500 families of Vietnam War POW-MIAs asked for accountability in finding their loved ones. We are here tonight to recommit to the families of our POW-MIAs that they are not forgotten, and we will not rest until everyone is accounted for and brought home. Tonight reminds us of the dear price some pay for our freedoms, and their families continue to pay many years later. Please pass on the message you hear tonight to the family and friends who may not know about this solemn day. Gene DiGiacomo to speak on the POW-MIA issue.
Good evening. And thank you for coming here tonight. A night that is set aside to remember and honor our prisoners of war and our missing in action. So many years have passed, so many wars, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraq, and Afghanistan have been put into our history books. Through the wars, there were thousands of prisoners of war and unaccounted for. Men and women that came home from captivity with the memory of horrors, the horrors they went through at the hands of the enemy. The missing were just left out. They were just left out there with no effort at all to recover them. Families to this day still live with the agony of not knowing. Politicians have talked about what was and what wasn't accomplished. Scholars and historians have written and discussed the reasons why and why not. My question to them and the media is why it took so long for them to recognize that they were prisoners of war and missing in action. Wars ended. Some were lucky enough to come home, but others didn't. They were forgotten and left at the hands of our enemies, and they suffered isolation and unimaginable horrors. So again I ask, where were the politicians, the scholars, the historians, and the media? Why did Congress have to be forced to bring the issue to bear by a group called the League of Families and the Free the Eagle movement, put together by a bunch of Vietnam veterans. This place, this Vietnam Memorial Park, has two special events, two very special events. The first one is on the second Sunday of June, we come here to honor our 85 brothers, men who laid down their lives so our people in a faraway land could be free. Tonight, we come here to remember and honor our POWs and MIAs. If you have not noticed, below our American flag and POW flag, we have placed a POW monument. It will lay here for generations, to remind people what was sacrificed, what freedom cost. I applaud you all coming tonight. You are few that have come here. You are the few that have come here to reaffirm this legacy. You are showing to all our commitment to make sure their service to this country will not be forgotten. You are the front lines to securing their memory. Be proud of that and never falter. We owe that to them and especially their loved ones. We are brothers forever. God bless you all and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Gene. This time I'd like to acknowledge a few of our friends that are here, the Nam Knights. Rolling Thunder Chapter 2. And some of our elected officials who will say a few words. Our Congresswoman Nicole Maliotakis.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you to everyone who's gathered here today. It is incredibly important that we do this every single year. And as the Commissioner said, 81,000 individuals. We were fortunate enough in our community in this congressional district to see the remains of Private First Class Raymond Smith returned recently, but 81,000. There's still too many that remain. I was fortunate to be able to visit Vietnam and Korea this year, where I was able to personally advocate for the returns of our POWs and MIAs, where I was able to firsthand see where you served, where the DMZ in Korea. Amazing to see our American soldiers and Korean soldiers working together, a thin line that separates them from the atrocities of communist Korea on the other side. But also to go to the Hilton Hanoi, where many of our POWs were held captive, including Senator John McCain, to think about and reflect on the atrocities that these POWs faced and experienced. It was eye-opening. It was something that I think every member of Congress should experience. And I believe that would lead to more demands that these individuals be returned home to the United States of America, where they belong. So I want to thank you all for your advocacy, and we will continue to do this, and we will continue to raise the alarm, and we will continue to bring and shed light on this incredibly important issue. Because men and women put on their uniform, they go to a strange land to fight for our freedoms and for the freedoms of others. And the least our government can do and should do is ensure that we will advocate for the return of every single one of them. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Nicole. This time I'd like to ask our Assemblyman Sam Perazola to come up. Thank you, Sam.
Good evening, everyone. How are you doing? I'd like to say it's a privilege to be here, and I'd also like to say that, you know, growing up, living on Staten Island, and not that I'm a young guy, but you always think you know what POW-MIA means. And it really was not until last year that I was at this event, when it was explained about all the missing and all the wars, that I got a greater understanding of what POW-MIA means. the next morning when I got up, I was having coffee, and I ordered a POW-MIA flag. And I fly the American flag and the POW-MIA flag in my house just a few blocks away. Not only that, I also fly those two flags at my office, which is on Victory Boulevard. So gentlemen, it's a thanks for your service. I appreciate that, but we need to recognize how many people have not come home. And when we think about saying thank you for your service, that really had a new meaning for me. Just about a week or so ago, I was at the Boulevard Post. My office was doing an event on flood prevention. And a gentleman, a veteran, Vietnam veteran, walked in the door. And he came in and I looked at him and I said, gee, you know, I know you. And it turns out he's Billy from Queens. He's one of my patients in Astoria, Queens. I know him and some members of his family. And he sat down and he started talking to Joe at the Post. And I just sat there, and thank you for your service took on a new meaning as far as when he spoke to Joe, they were able to talk to each other, like Gene just said, like brothers. You know, you're all brothers. And it kind of dawned on me that not only did these gentlemen serve together, but they are still serving as they are here. You know, I go to work and I think about what I did, you know, 30, 40 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever it is, but our servicemen and women have a whole different recollection of what it means to go to work. So with a renewed or new founding definition for thank you for your service, I do say thank you for your service. And also for the gentlemen and the women who are no longer here, not with us today, they should not be forgotten in thanking them for their service. So gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. I'd also like to acknowledge our public administrator, Edwina Francis Martin, who never misses our ceremony. And a representative from our district attorney, who's out of town, or he'd be here, Mike McMahon. His representative is Ryan Crimmins. At this time, we are going to have our chairback covering ceremony. I'd like to bring up Carlos Adenis.
Time and hut. Ready, face. Forward, up.
Carlos attended Curtis High School and at the age of 17 enlisted in the United States Navy. Oh, please be seated. Please be seated. It's going to be a while. A great bio. I can't cut it too short. Just won't do him justice. Carlos enlisted in the United States Navy at age 17. He graduated from Quartermaster A School after 4 weeks when he was issued orders to join the United States Atlantic Fleet at Naval Station Norfolk, Virginia. He reported duty on board the warship USS Stump. In 3 years, as part of the ship's navigation team in the position of quartermaster, Carlos completed 2 6-month deployments. On his first deployment, the USS Stump was directed to detach and proceed to the Persian Gulf to replace the USS Samuel B. Roberts, who suffered major damage from a mine explosion. After returning to the Gulf in August of 1988, the Stump deployed to the Caribbean Sea to conduct law enforcement operations. USS Stump was credited with recovering 80 bales of marijuana from a boat and identifying a plane who was carrying several hundred kilos of cocaine. In October of 1989, the USS Stump was extremely successful in conducting the ship's primary mission of anti-submarine warfare. Petty Officer Cardenas was extremely successful. He was awarded the Enlisted Navy Surface War Pin, the National Defense Service Medal and Ribbon, the Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, E-Ribbon Meritorious Unit Commendation, the Sea Service Deployment Ribbon twice, and the Coast Guard Special Operations Service Ribbon. Carlos was honorably discharged from the United States Navy in August of 1991. In April of '92, he was hired by New York Telephone Company as an installation and maintenance technician. Carlos joined Rolling Thunder Chapter 2 New York's in June of 2013 and currently serves as the organization's vice president. He retired from Verizon in April of 2022 after 30 years of service. This is very impressive. He graduated from the College of Staten Island in June of 2022 with a Bachelor's of Art degree in history. Carlos currently works as a sub-dean at Port Richmond High School, an assistant football coach on the varsity football team, while attending classes at Torrey University, seeking a master's degree in special education. Carlos, where do you get all your time? He's a proud father of 4 and a grandfather of 4 and an advocate for veterans.
Wow.
Detail. Post.
Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the table set in front of this podium. We ask you to remain seated, yet silent, as we conduct the POW-MIA ceremony. This ceremony is rich with military tradition, and we honor those and men and women of the armed forces who, in defense of our freedom, this country, and the world, are unaccounted for and are classified as prisoners of war or missing in action. To honor them and their memory, it is our duty to perform this ceremony at military functions all over.
This time I'd like to bring up Frank Russo and George Sullivan as they perform the Table for One ceremony.
We call your attention to this small table. The table, set for one, is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone with his or her oppressor. Remember.
Remember.
The tablecloth is white, symbolic of purity to the intentions to respond to their countries to arms. Remember.
Remember.
The single rose in the vase signifies the blood that many have shed in the sacrifice to ensure freedom of our beloved United States of America. The rose also reminds us of the family and friends of our missing comrades who keep the faith while awaiting their return. Remember.
Remember.
The yellow ribbon on the vase represents the yellow ribbon worn by thousands who demand with unyielding determination a proper accounting of our comrades that are not among us. Remember.
Remember.
A slice of lemon on the plate reminds us of their bitter fate. Remember.
Remember.
The salt. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the countless tears of the families as they wait. Remember.
Remember.
The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us tonight. Remember.
Remember.
The chair is empty. They are not here. Remember.
Remember.
The candle. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope which lives in the hearts of the families to illuminate their way home, away from their captors, to the open arms of a grateful nation. Remember.
Remember.
Let us pray to the Supreme Commander that all our comrades will soon be back within our ranks. Let us remember to never forget their sacrifice. May God forever watch over them and protect their families.
Amen.
Talked about numbers of prisoners of war missing in action. We must also remember prisoners of war who, after years of captivity, suffering, returned to the U.S. alive. In World War I, there was 3,973. World War II, 116,129. Korea, 4,418. Vietnam, 660. Their families waited for years, not knowing their fate, not knowing if they would ever come home. So we must always remember them as well. We have news of 2 servicemen recently accounted for. One's from World War II. His name is U.S. Army Private Lex L. Lillard, 20, of Tucson, Arizona, who was captured and died as a prisoner of war during World War II. He was accounted for on May 22nd, 2023. Lillard was among those reported captured when U.S. forces in the Bataan surrendered to the Japanese. They were subjected to the 65-mile Bataan Death March and then held at the Cabanatuan POW camp. According to prison camp and other historical records, Lillard died July 19, 1942. Lillard will be buried in Jay, Oklahoma on September 23, 2023. From the Korean War, the Defense Accounting Agency announced that U.S. Army Private Alvin D. Thurman, 21, from Broken Bow, Oklahoma, killed during the Korean War, was accounted for March 30th, 2023. Thurman was reported killed in action November 6, 1951. The Army issued a presumptive finding of death in November 1951 and declared Thurman non-recoverable January 16, 1956. Following the war, U.S. Army Quartermaster Corps, American Graves Registration Services recovered a set of remains designated X5106. On November 5, 2018, following thorough historical and scientific analysis, X5106 was sent to the laboratory for analysis where a positive ID was made. Thurman will be buried in Broken Bow, Oklahoma on October 21st, 2023. It should be noticed, after more than 70 years, people still want answers and deserve answers. Families are still waiting. Everyone must be accounted for. So now we'd like to acknowledge our 2 MIAs from the Vietnam War. Gerald Joseph Crossan, Jr., Major, 435th Tactical Fighter Squadron, 8th Tactical Fighter Wing, 7th Air Force, 12 March 1944 through 16 May 1968. Captain David J. Rickle, pilot, and Lieutenant Gerald J. Crossan, Jr., weapons system operator, were lost while flying an F-4D Phantom over North Vietnam. The aircraft was shot down about 20 miles southwest of the city of Quang Qui
Quang Binh Province, North Vietnam. Other air crews in the area saw no parachutes, nor were any emergency beeper signals heard. Search and rescue operations failed to locate any sign of either crewman, and both men were classified missing in action. The North Vietnamese never listed the two as captured, and Rickel and Crossan were not among the American POWs released in February 1973, nor did any of the released POWs have any knowledge of the two men. The Secretary of the Air Force approved the presumptive finding of death for Gerald Crossan on 5 May 1978, changing his status from missing in action to died while missing. Gerald Crossan was 24 years old. Date of loss, 16 May 1968, North Vietnam. Kevin O'Brien, 1969. The two men were lost when an O-12 Bird light observation aircraft went down in bad weather on 9 January 1969. Captain Hugh Bird, pilot, and First Lieutenant Kevin O'Brien, artillery observer. The two had departed Phu Bai on an artillery support mission in the Khe Sanh area. While aloft, they were diverted to assist the reconnaissance team in enemy contact. After being relieved on station, Bird headed back to Phu Bai. At about 1940 hours, he reported that the weather was getting worse, the aircraft was not equipped for instrument flight, and that he was uncertain of his position. Radar controllers tried to get a fix on the Bird dog, but were unsuccessful. Radio direction finding did allow controllers to get an imprecise location. Based on that information and the pilot's reports, controllers believed the aircraft to be in a mountainous area with peaks rising above the O1's reported altitude. The controller recommended that Bird should hunt to avoid the terrain, but was unable to establish radio contact with the aircraft. An immediate search was impractical due to weather and nightfall, but airborne searches began the following morning and continued for several days. The wreckage was not located, nor was contact made with either of the two men. When the search effort was terminated, both Bird and O'Brien were classed as missing in action. The Secretary of the Army eventually approved presumptive findings of death of both men. Bird on 11 January 1974 and O'Brien on 7 March 1979. Their remains have not been repatriated. Kevin O'Brien was 22 years old. Date of loss, 9 January 1969, South Vietnam.
Again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. It's so important that we gather here on this solemn day to remember our POWs, MIAs, and their families. As both Gene and Nick said, our support shows that we will never forget them and their sacrifices. At this time, I'd like to bring up Mary Matthew to sing God Bless America.
If you would like to join in with me. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairie, to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, Mary.
This country was born in battle. We had to fight to be free. Throughout the course
Sergeant at Arms,
Sir!
dismiss the honor guard.
Sir, yes, sir! Vietnam Veterans of America, Thomas J. Torrey, Chapter 421, dismissed!
God bless you. God bless you.
This country was born in battle. We had to fight to be free. Throughout the course of our existence, there have been threats on our liberty. Whenever freedom was challenged, we rose to meet the call to protect the rights and privileges of all. So we learned the hard way that freedom isn't free, and what it takes to earn it, most free people never see. For those who bore the burden and had to pay the price, our freedom was bought with blood and sacrifice. So honor them all, honor them all. Their legacy is more than just names on a wall. Though all gave some had to give all, so that liberty and freedom would never fall. Though it seems the battles were always fought on foreign shores, everything changed that September morn when terror flew through our front door. And though great harm was done to us, our spirit did not fail, as the whole world watched the people of America prevail. So honor them all, honor them all. Their legacy is more than just names on a wall. Though all gave some had to give all, so that liberty and freedom would never fall. And so we've been through 2 world wars, Korea and Vietnam, the Caribbean, the Persian Gulf, Somalia, Lebanon, then New York City, the Pentagon, Flight 93 over VA. When freedom needs heroes, America leads the way. So honor them all, honor them all. To Afghanistan to fight terror until it falls. And once again in Iraq, our heroes stood tall to end tyranny and oppression for one and all. Yes, honor them all, honor them all. Their legacy is more than just names on a wall. Though all gave some had to give all, so that liberty and freedom would never fall. America stands for freedom throughout the